Well, good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this space. I want to start by introducing myself and let you know, first and foremost, I feel that this space is collaborative between us. Social work shouldn't and doesn't happen in a silo, and neither should the care for ourselves, that we are uplifting to each other and the capacities that we have to offer and make for each other. And I see our space today as a representation of that. So at times throughout our 50 minutes, it's an hour or 50 minutes, Charles, with our 50 minutes together, what I would like to do is to have it to be very collaborative. So come on camera, unmute yourself. Your presence in this space is incredibly important, and I feel that I learn better. I really learn when someone shares something that's really working for themselves in their life. And I think caring for ourselves, we're the best stewards of knowing what we need. And so I invite you to unmute and come off camera and do share. So the first thing that I would like to get started with today is just introducing myself. My name is Elizabeth Gillette, and I spent most of my life in Texas working for nonprofits as a fundraiser, because it really was the only job that I could find at the time. I think I started in 2009, and I worked for the National Audubon Society. And I continued to be a fundraiser because I found that enthusiasm is infectious. And when you're very passionate about the work that you do, and I had found myself in a position of talking to individuals who had the financial means to make a difference in the organization that I was supporting. And the space that we had together in talking and sharing ideas of the programs that I was working on, it made a difference to the organization. And after leaving Audubon, I worked for various other nonprofits, but always in a fundraising capacity. And I join you in this space today, acknowledging the fact that I'm not the best steward of advocating for myself and what my own needs are. But when it comes to the work that I'm doing, I could do that all day. I could do that lights my fire. And I'm sure that y'all feel the same. But it's particularly challenging for me. And just to be open and honest with you, I have OCPD, which is obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So the way that shows up is I'm a perfectionist, and I will sacrifice my own self-care when I'm feeling like I need to give the endeavor that I'm working on everything I've got. I will always put myself to the side and work towards the cause at my own detriment, without sleeping, without eating, oftentimes, and then we can't function. So self-care is incredibly important. And this isn't just about my story. I want to know ways that how not advocating for your own self-care, how that affects you in your life, and naming those barriers and bringing to the forefront the tools, the resources, friendships, and things in your life that matter, to removing those barriers so that we can do the important work that we are going to continue to do. So let's get started. Thank you, Jalicia. It's wonderful to see your face. Okay, I'm trying to find where I can just move the slide.
Yeah. No, I get it. Is it on your keyboard? Is it allowing you to press the next? Oh, there we go. Perfect. Yep.
Okay. So this is my story. I have been in fundraising most of my career, and I am a recent graduate of Columbia University, and I know that I have some of my classmates here. I kind of feel like each of you is a classmate and a peer. And it is really wonderful and truly meaningful to me that we're in this space together. I studied, I don't know if I just mentioned this, but I studied policy and international social welfare at Columbia. And since leaving Columbia, I have started a consulting firm called Gender Equity Policy Advisors. And the work that I had focused on while I was at Columbia, and that I had seen throughout my entire career, as we all share that vision and very real awareness of the inequities in every system. And my organization works with companies and nonprofits and NGOs to identify what those barriers are throughout HR and do an assessment and offer policy analysis. So that's what I'm doing now, not self-care focused. However, self-care should be intuitive to everything that we're doing, especially when it is not most difficult to grasp. First, I wanted to share my 5 secrets to self-care. And if you would, please, if you would please come on camera again, come on mic. I was not joking about this being a collaborative space. These are my 5 secrets, but if they're not pertinent to you, I would love to hear what is working for you. So my first secret to self-care is to talk to yourself like you would someone that you love. It's very, very difficult to do. The second is that we can treat each other with compassion. We can't treat each other with compassion unless we are kind to ourselves. And what does that look like for you? And the third secret is that it takes courage to say yes to play and to rest in a culture where exhaustion is seen as a status symbol. The fourth secret is how well we know ourselves is extremely important, but how we treat ourselves is most important. And the fifth secret, owning our story and loving ourselves is the bravest thing that we can do. Would anyone like to share some examples or situations in your life that you have been in where it was incredibly difficult for you to realize that being kinder to yourself meant that you had to place a boundary? Does anyone in our group have an example that you would like to share? If not, I'm going to move on.
Okay, looks like we have something in the chat from, I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong, from Rainey. She mentioned that this topic is so relatable to her. She's trying to juggle work, interning in classes, and it's been tough. And then I see Jessica, life in general, and really implementing those boundaries. Definitely agree.
Yeah, I would agree. Rainey, I think one thing for me, and that's when I realized I had OCPD, because my weight, like without eating and without sleeping, my weight was really, it was exhausting. It truly was exhausting. And I understand how that can be stressful. And please feel free to also drop in the comments ways that other things in addition to barriers that you found that to really show yourself love and kindness and care. As social workers and being in positions of leading, being able to lead by example, I wanted to share this with you. It was a beautiful quote of Brene Brown's. I think we're all familiar with her, that I found very pertinent to this topic. is that a leader is anyone who takes responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes, that has the courage to develop that potential. And I think speaking to boundaries and taking care of ourselves, when we do that, and when we find and feel that we do that over time pretty regularly, it becomes almost intuitive, that we're able to recognize in others what their strengths are. And we have more of a clarity of vision to lead from when we're kinder to ourselves. And I don't say that lightly. It is a very intentional process. And thinking about ways of removing barriers to truly have a sense of clarity. Some things that are always in the background that almost motivate us intuitively are our values. This is just a very small list of examples of what some values are, but I think it's important to have them in front of us and to think about them. And as our eyes roll down the list, are there any of the specific characteristics on the screen that really resonate with you and resonate with who you are, and how do they feel to you? Like when you think about reading the word connection, how does that feel to you? When you read the word fairness, what does that feel like? Where is the feeling resonating in your body? Where is it not? And what does it feel like? Compassion and creativity for me. Thank you, Jennifer. Optimism and compassion. Thank you, David. What does optimism and compassion feel like? Belonging and having a community to support me. Yes, Kathleen. I recently moved during the pandemic across the country to a community without knowing anyone there. I just knew that I was surrounded by mountains. I moved to Colorado, and to me, having something that wasn't man-made, that I could lay my eyes on every day, that was much larger than me, made a difference. And it's a kind of a different sense of community, if you will, because I had found previously, when I lived in a metropolitan city, being surrounded by skyscrapers and buildings, that while humans inhabit them to get their work done, it didn't make me feel like I had a sense of community. I didn't feel like I could knock on doors and the person on the other side of the door would be responsive to me and to the work that I was doing. So I think that that's just a metaphor for community. And I just personally found nature to be in a greater sense in that feeling of community. I'm going to go to the chat and see what some other folks have said. Oh my God, Tiffany, grace and gratitude warms my heart and helps me to lean more into my humanity. Grace and gratitude. We're going to be talking more about that in just a moment, Tiffany. Thank you for saying that. Nature, growth, balance, curiosity, compassion. Stephanie, you're feeling all the feels. It's beautiful. Totally agree with nature. I know. Oh my gosh, listen to this. This is totally unscripted. Well, most of it is, but we just took, this is my first time to Washington, D.C. I can't believe it. But we just took a ride over to the Capitol and the cherry blossoms. I know that we've all heard about the cherry blossoms, but to find yourself sitting under a tree, looking at such beauty, like every blossom, you don't know how much energy and what went into that tree, like doing what it does naturally.
Yeah, they're so beautiful. I mean, this is my first year in DC as well, and so my first time getting to see them in person. And it's nice because like we're prompted to take a picture and to take a video, but to actually just sit there and and experience it, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. It really is. I want to share something else with you because the comments so far have to do with connecting with community, and I want to share some words with you that I learned in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic. I was invited to attend Lakota Indigenous ceremony called Humblecha, which is Vision Quest in English. And what Vision Quest is, and what I learned, well, let me tell you what I learned from it. I really want you to take this away from this presentation today, is the term mitakwiyase. Mitakwiyase. It's 2 words. And what it means is all my relatives. All my relatives. We're all related, whether it's nature, whether it is humanity, whether it is something that flies or something that crawls. We are all related. And I found a great depth of peace in what I know to be this life when I heard that word. So I want you to know that even though different living beings speak a different language, whether it's blooming or it's speaking words or it's merely existing, that if you can breathe and just be present in that moment, we can feel a sense of relatedness. And that is almost self-care. And knowing that there is an order of things that exists that's greater than ourselves. So, thank you. Thank you for sharing what your top 2 values are. It's so beautiful to see what resonates with us. The next thing that I thought it would be good for us to jump into are things that I have found, the top 10 rules for self-love. How do you feel a sense of community, a sense of relatedness, and of gratitude? Okay, let's jump right in. I do want to ask, are my notes visible, or is it just the screen?
Yeah, just the screen. And then we do have closed caption on, just in case anyone needs it.
Okay, thank you. I'm just scrolling through the comments real quick, and my apologies, I'm not jumping right into the slide, but your feedback is incredibly important to me, and I want to make space for what you're sharing. Can they read they can see the comments as well?
Yes.
Course. Okay.
Yeah.
Community, diversity, dignity. So often. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, someone asked for the term again. Yeah, I don't know. Are you able to write it in the chat? Just so.
Well, if it's a challenge, I find it challenging to spell, but definitely by the end of the presentation, I will Google it. Great. And drop it in for you. But the term again was mitakwiyase, and it is a Lakota term, meaning all my relatives.
I love that.
Yes. And I was honored to be included in a naming ceremony when I, with Lakota elder and shaman Pansy Hawkwing, and I was given the name Wan Bluka Akan Ali Moni Wee, which means the woman who walks across the rainbow and connects both sides. And one thing that I want to say and share with you that I've learned from my experience of being a part of Lakota ceremonies is a person's name. And I know this is way off a topic, but in the United States, a name, we are given one name at birth, and we are, and white culture, YT culture, encourages you to change your name to fit into this country. The way that Lakota have shared with me is that when you go through a different point of your life of growth, your name changes. Your name is representative of the path that you are on. and that you are going towards. And so your name changes throughout your life, and you get a new name. And I just think that that is important to share with you in terms of talking about self-care, because sometimes living in a culture can be so heavy and feel incredibly heavy and suffocating, and like it's a never-ending process of trying to be on the right side of right and work hard towards alleviating oppression in others. That's it. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to type this in the chat. But I just want to say that if it works for you, that you feel like freedom, if you feel like independence, if you feel that the sounds of the words of that you're speaking resonate in your soul and that's who you are, change your name. Give yourself a nickname to go by. What does it feel like to you to be courage, to be freedom, to be independence, to be these things? So as we think about self-care, think about ways and metaphorical ways that you can lift burdens from your own identity to make you feel whole and that you are living in your purpose. Okay, I'm going to type in the word for you. I'm here. Thank you. Okay. So we live in a culture of scarcity, of never enough. There is only one way out of scarcity, and that is enoughness. At some point, we need to say that we are enough. So that is the first rule to self-love. If you want to go deeper and learn a range of self-awareness tools, build a loving relationship with yourself. What tools would you share that you find yourself using to say that you feel that you are enough? And share your whole story with your whole heart. The original definition of courage is to share your whole story in your whole heart. It's an act of courage that is an act of storytelling. And that has to do with being vulnerable, with being honest with yourself. And I have found in our culture that to be vulnerable and honest and sharing our story with our whole heart, that's not the way that people want us to show up. That they are, it's almost like it threatens their security, their well-being, and who they know as this culture that we're living in. Thank you. Thank you for sharing the word. Yes. If you would, I really am interested in hearing what some of the tools are that you're using. When you want to feel like you are enough, or in sharing your story and who you are, what are some of the tools that you're using when you want to go deeper into that practice? And feel free to drop them in at any time. The third rule for self-love is to engage with the world. It's about waking up in the morning and saying that I am worthy of love, belonging, and joy. And it's all about engaging with the world from a place of worthiness. And the fourth one is vulnerability is the birthplace of love. Don't you feel it when you're talking to someone and it's like hearing a song together? Like it's like you're on the same tune, that you're sharing and you're feeling the same vibration. It's just, that is the sense of being vulnerability. It's like interacting with the world around you that is grounded from a place of self-worth and undeniably the reality. It's a beautiful place. I feel like I'm going back and forth and seeing what everyone's saying. Yes, you love that. Thank you, Rainey. Thank you. Is this something that you all ever think about? How do you remind yourself that there is an endless supply of love and joy on the other side that makes the process of being vulnerable more easy for you? Because if vulnerability is the center of difficult emotion, it has to also be the birthplace of every positive emotion that you need in your life, right? Does that sit? Affirmations and gratitude. Affirmations and gratitude. Do you find that changes, or is there one that, can you give us an example of an affirmation that you have, David? Feel free to share. And Jasmine, self-reflection and reminding myself that I am in a place that I once imagined that I would be. How real is that? That is so tangible.
And I just wanted to insert for a second. It's amazing that you mentioned this birthplace of love, because a lot of times, we get asked this question, why? Or get told, just remember your why, like it'll work, everything will work itself out, or what's your passion, etc. And I feel like this piece, this vulnerability piece, is that deeper underlying, connectedness, like that tissue that connects the why, the passion, into whatever, you're doing or who you're serving. Because if you don't understand that, then, you won't really understand the why, or understand why are you passionate about this. So.
Yes. And have you also found that enthusiasm is so infectious?
It really is. It is.
Yes. Yes. What I desire desires me. Allie, are you kidding me? That is beautiful. Journaling allows me to be self-reflective and challenge the internal thoughts that prevent me from fully loving and accepting myself. That is so beautiful. One thing I want to add to that, journaling, Maya, do you have different sets of, maybe colored paper or colored pens or different writing utensils that you write with in your journal? Sometimes I find that if I'm in a particular mood, I often use red paper, for example, and write with gold ink because I'm feeling it. So writing the words down in something that is reflective of the power within me is very powerful. I don't know if that's something that anyone else does, or if you've thought about that. I'd be happy to share my favorite, like different types of ink and pens and paper, but having that accessibility of ways to be, and to feel, and just to be an extension is a beautiful thing. Thank you for mentioning journaling, Maya. Long hikes, 10 miles alone with nature, and you spend the day in reflection and being grateful and be able to enjoy nature like this. Yes. If anyone on here is familiar with EMDR therapy, Anna, I think what you've just shared about going on hikes, what I've learned from EMDR therapy, or the concept of EMDR therapy, when we're going on a walk and we see there is a row of trees at different depths, and if you think about something that you are dealing with in your life, and if you're moving your eyes back and forth from one tree to the other, and you're resetting your belief about that thought that you're working on, or a thought about yourself, and navigating a challenge, that it helps to reset. It helps to reset the feelings or trauma that are associated with the challenge or issue that you're thinking about. I wanted to share that. I didn't know if y'all were familiar with that, but I think that hiking and being in nature also lends itself to self-care in that way. Wow, journaling. Okay. That's right. Elizabeth, thank you so much for sharing that. This is really beautiful. Photography, yoga. Jasmine, thank you. Support, photography. Thank you. Oh, this is beautiful. Can we not share Are you and I the only ones that have access to our microphones?
No, everyone should be able to come off mute or come on camera.
Okay. If we have time and space, I would love to give 3 minutes to us if we want to open the floor to speaking. Please feel free to join.
Waiting for approval. Okay, let me on the back end. I'm going to work it out and see what's going on.
Why don't we start with the next slide? The next slide, I have 2 per slide, so that gives us plenty of time and space to talk about each one if we want to. The 5th rule for self-love is to get vulnerable, to let go of your armor. We all have this dialogue of terror wrapped around us, and I'm not safe enough. I'm not liked enough. I'm never going to be good enough. I don't have enough experience. I'm too tall. I'm too short. I'm too not enough. But guess what the number one casualty is of scarcity culture? That we close down and we lose vulnerability, and you just shut down. That's the casualty of not being vulnerable. And as soon as you shut down and turn the metaphorical tap off to those difficult emotions, that's when you limit your supply of creativity, of joy, of happiness, of gratitude, of self-love. Those can't exist together. Would someone want to say something? Okay. Hi, everyone. It's so good.
Yeah, we have faces. Yay.
Hello. And let go of your armor. I'll go over this last point and then we'll open up the floor for just a moment. But we all grew up and experienced to varying degrees trauma and disappointment, oppression, hard stuff that we armored up. And at some point, that armor no longer serves us. Your armor is too heavy. It's not protecting you. It keeps you from being seen by others. So don't judge yourself for having this armor. It protected you at one time, but if you continue to carry it throughout your lives, that stuff can get heavy. Do y'all have any idea of the armor that you're carrying? Like, anyone want to add to this? Like, any thoughts? If not, I'm going to move to the next.
I'll add something. So I think just kind of, I work with, one of my jobs is doing in-home services with children that have experienced a lot of trauma. And some of the armor that they hold is the grief from some of the things that they've experienced. So a lot of that work is processing that grief to undo that component of the armor.
Oh my goodness. And is that something that you bring into the space as space to talk about that?
Yeah, a lot of it too is working with those clients. They have to be in the space. So a lot of that is like building that therapeutic alliance to really work on kind of peeling and taking off that armor in that analogy.
Mm-hmm. And how many times do you notice that when you recognize this in others, that it's something that you're carrying within yourself also? Because when you say that, it makes me think about what grief am I carrying?
Sure. Like I have a client that like lost a parent at a young age, and I did too. And I hadn't thought about that in years until I started working with this client again. And so there's an understanding there of some of those emotions and not wanting to open up for a long time.
And the beauty
I'm just more mindful of it because I had that shared experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing.
I'm like here in your session
with
you.
Yes. Walter is interning this year with NASW, and I'm in NASW offices, and Walter wants to share too.
Yes. In terms of like what armor am I bringing to the different spaces that I'm in, I think for me it's often trying to be more than just one of my social identities. So there's just always this pressure to not be seen as one of my social identities and to bring my full self. but there's also like a need to protect all of these different identities. So it's quite a continuum of showing up as my full self, but also protecting those different identities in spaces where they're clearly in the minority.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Were y'all able to hear Walter? You could? How beautiful is that? I feel that. I feel that. I wish that everyone that saw my face could see all of me.
Yeah.
Is that what you were saying?
I think so. Being more receptive to receiving more of me, right, than just what is on the surface or what they hear in the first few minutes or first few interactions. So more openness to be able to experience more people in the different settings that we share.
Yeah.
That does a lot of work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and how powerful would it be if we got to feel someone's entire existence the moment that we saw them, even on screen? How powerful would that be? And beautiful. That's poetic in a way. But what struck me was really interesting is you also said to protect them.
Yeah. Often those, some of those social identities that I hold personally are definitely in the minority in our society. And so there's not as much space for those identities to be received and respected and listened to and seen. So as I challenge myself to bring all of these identities, to allow them to show up in these different spaces, there's also a lot of apprehension, because I know that those identities, those different voices and experiences that I'm bringing are not going to be understood immediately by some people with more power, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. And if you want to come and let everyone see your face.
I'm fine right here.
No, y'all really need to see Walter. Isn't that beautiful? Everyone's like, yeah, you can see. Okay, you feel free to sit here if you want. Okay, this is
I'm
Walter.
just saying hi.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on to the 6th rule of self-love. 7th, I'm sorry. Speak to yourself the way that you would speak to someone that you love. This one's a tough one for me because I don't think that I am very nice to the people I love. And I'm just being vulnerable and telling you the truth. That I have learned to stop and to think and to be empathetic and compassionate. And where it's relatable, or where I think it could be relatable, is sharing my story. That shame cannot survive being spoken. And this is especially important when you are feeling unworthy. I have found that experience. How many of us have experienced a self-loathing spiral and only fuel the fire with unhelpful remarks about ourselves? If you're willing to be kind and loving to your friends when they're feeling vulnerable, then how come you can't be kind and loving to yourself? How often do you think that you're truly being vulnerable? Do you think that you can pay yourself that same favor and love? And number 8, letting go of perfectionism. Dr. Lewis is agreeing with that rule. It is difficult. It is difficult. I started the presentation today by sharing with you that I have OCPD. The way that shows up is a feeling of unworthiness. So I'm not feeling vulnerable enough to share any more of that with you, but that is my reality. It just is very heavy. Thank you, Anna. What else would I like to say about letting go of perfectionism? That it's an excuse to protect ourselves. It's an excuse to protect myself, that I can't get to that today. I don't have the emotional capacity to finish this conversation. I can't hold your feelings of doubt, of being stressed, of your feelings of feeling unworthy. I can't hold that. That's what perfectionism does, is sometimes doesn't allow us the space to be present for others. Yes, Dr. Lewis.
I think it's also that it's born out of a fear of failure.
A fear of failure. Would you like to come on camera and share more about the fear of failure? You're the leader.
Yeah, come on camera. come.
You're the founder and leader of CRISP, and we would love to hear from you. I think it would be very important to hear about what fears you have.
Well, so it's like, and I think I've had this for, most of my life. I hate to lose. I think most people hate to lose. I was a bad loser, sore loser. If I lost, I smashed the bat on the ground until it broke. There are just people who don't like to lose, and I think there's sometimes we even become narcissistic because of how people tell us how wonderful we are, and that we are the golden child, and we're never supposed to lose. We're always supposed to win. We're always supposed to succeed, no matter what the circumstances are. And so you have this, you're going to fail at something eventually, but you want to make sure, in order to make sure that you don't fail, you got to have everything perfect and everything right. I mean, we've had some glitches here today on our program, but if you're not careful, we will say that it wasn't successful just because of this glitch or that glitch. If you're a perfectionist, you always find yourself failing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finished.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Moment. Okay, here we go. Back to slide the number 7 or number 8, letting go of perfectionism. Before we move on, I just want to add to what Dr. Lewis said and just say that being perfect, the desire to be perfect, is decidedly a human trait, and that we can't be perfect all the time. And please don't text me later and remind me that I said that. So just let yourself exist. I want to share something else with you that I learned from the Lakota. And that is the concept of original instruction. A pear tree cannot make apples. A banana tree cannot make oranges. Like that original instruction that an orange tree has is to produce oranges. We cannot be anything that we are not. And the true original instruction that we have is courage. It's courage. That's it. And I just want to share that with you. And that is, I don't know what else to say about that. It's just courage. Okay. Number 9, be grateful. There isn't an emotion that's more difficult to experience than joy. Even when things are going well, we're always going to wait for the other shoe to drop. So just simply, beautifully be grateful. And number 10, practice authenticity. What does it mean to be authentic? It means to be vulnerable, to be honest, to be real, to share your story, to be relatable, and to know that we are all, mitakuye, that we are all related. When you come from a place of being in community, of being in relation, that's authenticity. This is the key to joy and to vulnerability. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I would invite you to come apart, to come up on screen and to come off mic and to share your thoughts and what are one or two of your rules for self-love. What have you found? What could you add to those that we've shared and talked about here? I'd love to hear. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Wow. Thank you for your comments. These are beautiful. Okay. Humor. Sarah, yes. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Does anyone find that it's really hard to laugh sometimes? Maybe that's just a characteristic of my personality, but it is sometimes challenging for me to laugh. Like I found that if someone hurts themselves or like stumps their toe, I can't help but laugh, but yes. And trying to be more intentional about laughing at things that I have done are very helpful. LaSalle University Department of Social Work. Hello. It's nice to see you all. And Walter has something. Do you want to come over here?
I don't, but I will.
Thank you.
And you actually already touched on this, but that concept of like the language you use with yourself, I think I had to learn that in 2020 specifically because we spend so much time with ourselves. But the language I developed for that is being a friend to myself. You mentioned that you have a hard time being nicer to people that you that are in your network, maybe.
No, that I love.
That you love specifically.
Yes.
I don't have that challenge. I am very intentional about how I treat the people around me. And out of 2020, I realized I had to give myself that I deserve that same thing from myself. So being intentional about the relationship with myself, viewing it as a relationship, and giving myself all of the things that I would give anyone else that I have a relationship with, like my friends, like my mother, right? There are just certain ways I wouldn't speak to those people because I care about them. So realizing I deserve that from me too is a way that self-love has manifested following 2020 specifically.
What's coming to mind for me? Well, you don't have to commit to this, but I like working with accountability buddies. So if I could text you every time I love that, like do something positive towards making a change, that would help me. You're like, no, but, but thank you for sharing that. It's a reminder. It's more than a reminder. And I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much, Elizabeth, for this conversation, this space. This was great. Like I enjoyed it, and I'm sure everyone within this session enjoyed it as well. So we are going to head out so that you all can get ready for the next presentation. But I just wanted to give everyone like a minute or two. I know that space was just created, but if you have anything you want to say, feel free to jump in. We'll probably close out around 2:54 and shut this session down so you can make it to the next one. But like, feel free to come in and say anything.
Yes.
Or drop it in the chat.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Oh, and also this is is being recorded, has been recorded. And so at some point in time, it will be available for you all to view.
Thank you.
So all of that we
I'm going to stay on and read through the comments for a couple more minutes. And if anyone wants to say hello.
Absolutely. I'm going to hop off. Thank you all. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Jaleesa. Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Elizabeth. Just want to go on camera real quick, just to, like they say in the always, put my eyes on you.
Oh, it's nice to see. It's
Thank
been
you.
nice to meet you.
Yeah, grace and gratitude. Thank you.
Well, I'd love to connect with you after this session. So find me, or I will find you. It's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
I'm going to send you my information because I'm trying to figure out how I move differently in my second phase of life. And the model to go after in looking at a more eclectic practice, social work practice, and creating that new model, specifically around African American women who identify with a strong woman. I'm trying to, can we take off the cape, please? Put that down. Let's move forward, more gentle and kindness to ourselves. So I'll be following up. Thank you so much.
It's so beautiful. Thank you. It's so nice to meet you, Tiffany.
You too. Bye. Take care, Elizabeth.
Bye-bye.